The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Kiwi.
Well, Norton this morning have just released a report that looks at kids online and how they're using their time online and their experiences online as well. And, well, it's not all good. Some of it's positive, but it's not all good as well. Kids around the globe are growing up in this new sort of online world, learning to navigate not only the web, but also new rules, emotions, and unfortunately, the negative feelings that sometimes come along with some of these experiences as well. To talk with us more about this is Michelle Thompson joining us from Australia this morning, from Norton. Hello to you, Michelle.
Hello.
Now, this is slightly concerning that that there was a reasonably high amount of negative experiences going on. In fact, 63% of respondents in New Zealand had negative experiences online.
Yes, that's true, but the good thing is that a very large percentage of children are actually, if they do have a bad experience or they think something inappropriate has been done, they actually would go to an adult, being it a parent or a guardian.
What kind of negative experiences are these kids actually having?
Well, it's one of those things, depending on the child and depending what's actually happened to them, either someone they didn't know was trying to make them as a friend, or, they've done something, a little bit negative and they've realised, they've downloaded something and something's happened to the computer. So they could be little things or they could be, a larger scale thing. So it really depends on the child, depending on what age group, but they definitely have seen that these things do happen.
What kinds of things are kids doing? And when we're talking about kids, what sort of age range here?
We surveyed, the actual report that we surveyed was between 8-year-olds to 17-year-olds. So a very wide range, and a range that actually changes, obviously, in what they actually are doing online. Obviously, the younger ones, it is about schoolwork or playing games. And then as they get older, it's more of a social networking thing for them. Yeah.
And what about chat rooms? Because 10 years ago, the big thing was chat rooms and the danger, the stranger danger in chat rooms. Is that still the case? I personally, I wouldn't even know where to go to find a chat room these days.
Yeah, but children are very clever and they speak to each other and they find everything that you and I might not find. But the main thing I think that we've got for the report and what it's about is to educate parents, adults, as well as children on what to do and what not to do online. And the more that you can educate ourselves and the children, the better off that they are to actually have a good experience online. The internet is supposed to be a great place. It's supposed to be a place of, yes, being it social, but a learning environment as well. And we just want to make it a better place.
You were saying earlier that these kids who are having negative experiences, most of them end up going and talking to their parents about this. So is that unique to New Zealand, or is this a worldwide trend where kids know to go and speak to an adult?
No, we're pretty lucky. New Zealand have led the way in many things, actually, which is a great thing. But globally, I think that everyone is trying to understand, and children do find that going to their parents is the better thing, which is a great thing. New Zealand is very interesting, actually, though. 78% of adults, parents, have actually had to talk and set up rules and regulations with their child about what they should and shouldn't do online, setting how many hours they should, be online per day or per week, actually setting, rules on where they should and shouldn't go. So that's a fantastic thing to know that that's what's happening in New Zealand.
God, imagine being a kid growing up these days. The parent turns around and says, "We're going to have the talk," and you're like, "Oh no, not that talk."
But
I want to talk about your internet experience. Oh, phew.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think the one good thing is that there is the talk is happening, but I suppose what we want to make sure and ensure of is that it's not just a one-off talk. It has to be constantly and always, who are your friends online, what are you doing now, just to make sure that they understand that you're trying to and want to know what their, online life is like, because it has changed from when, I didn't have the computer when I was younger, and so they are more advanced and they actually know more of what's happening on the internet. So as long as you're keeping up the talk and, being a parent doesn't stop just because they're on a computer.
Did the survey also find that there was a slight divide between what parents thought their kids were up to online and what kids were actually doing online?
Yeah, there was a little bit. So I think there's going to be a disconnect, and until education and that we all become as one, I think there will always be a disconnect. What parents thought their children were doing online, they believed, they were doing schoolwork all the time, or they were, just playing games. Whereas children, they definitely had some tie-ins, but definitely there is this gap that we do need to close, so we need to have an understanding of what our children are doing online.
Interesting also that 37% of New Zealand children reported that they are more careful about their online activities than their parents are.
Yes, because I think a child does know that if they do download a game, they could either, put a bot or a piece of malware on the machine, so they probably understand that more, whereas their parents thinking, oh yeah, just download the game, there's nothing to that.
Yeah.
So it's just the understanding of, it's just a different age group and what they're growing up with a computer and the internet
You can imagine, oh Dad, you put a virus on the computer again. Come
yes,
on.
That's right. And the child has to clean it up.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, that's the situation here where kids are often going to have, in the end, far more knowledge about this stuff than their parents ever will.
Absolutely, and as I said, it really does come back to education, and making sure there's dialogue and the talk between the parent and the children on what they're doing and what their experiences are. And it's not just about setting rules verbally. We always suggest that you should install a good parenting tool. At Norton, we actually have a free service, which is onlinefamily.norton.com, that you can actually, it helps you set up a dialogue and understand what your child is doing on a day-to-day basis on the internet.
And finally, I mean, do you recommend, the computer chastity belt? I mean, should a parent really control what's going on, actually fully monitor all the time, install a piece of software that key logs what the kids are up to, that kind of stuff?
It's a great question, Glenn. But we believe that a little bit of both. I think actually controlling them to an extent, but I think we should empower the children. Again, it's about education. So if you're suggesting and talking about and telling them what they need to do, but as well, as I said, installing a good software program so then you can actually see what they're doing. If you're a bit concerned about it, you can actually bring it up in conversation, not necessarily over the dinner table, but maybe while you're shopping with them. Hey, I noticed that you're going here. What's happening? Do you have friends there? Everyone's on that site. So it's just about keeping the communication up, the dialogue, understand what your child is doing, and so that means it makes it easier for you to actually set better rules, because rules do have to change as well.
Absolutely. Michelle Thompson, a pleasure talking to you this morning. Thanks so much for getting up so early in Australia to talk to us.
Not a problem, Glenn. Thank you.
Michelle Thompson there from Norton. Here's a track now from Artisan Guns. This is called Into